Nadine, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
John, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here tonight with you.
Yep. I'm super excited to get to talk to you a little bit, not only about your expertise and in what you do, but some of your thoughts of what's currently going on. We got a lot to talk on as we were just discussing, but let's start first. What you were last kind of talking on a little bit about people living a fear-based life and how it affects us.
Well, first of all, I want to say that the whole reason for my presence on Facebook and Instagram and my website was to help people to learn how to live a more creative, less fear-based life so that and I help them to identify where their limited beliefs are holding them back. So many people today are living in a very fear-based environment. So they do things based on the outcome that if they don't, something terrible is going to happen. So that really takes out faith. So if you think about it, when you're in fear, you're not in faith. And but we are reinforced constantly through all the media outlets, through conditioning, family conditioning, ancestral conditioning, societal conditioning, to live in this fear-based life. So most of our decisions are made in this survival mode, in this fight or flight type environment. And what it's done is it's led to a society or a world, especially in the more developed countries, of people who are living completely unsatisfactory, unfulfilling lives, as
No doubt.
as you can see by the rates of depression and anxiety medication and drug use and drinking and all of it. It doesn't matter what it is. Everyone's looking for an escape, whether it's Netflix, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether it's going to the doctor repeatedly, the incidence of disease. I've been trained in energy medicine, and so I understand that repressed emotions and unresolved emotions actually get stored in our physical body, which causes dis-ease. And we just take it that, oh, well, it's normal for everyone to have cancer. It's normal for everyone to have thyroid problems. It's normal for, I could go diabetes. I could go on and on and on. When we really never address, we dance around the outside with prescriptions and with all kinds of different things. But essentially, what America is especially doing is just self-medicating, because there is a lack of any kind of fulfillment on the soul level. So it's reflective in the personalities of people.
No doubt. And I think that a big part of that too is I think the American people and people all over the world, especially since the pandemic, that they don't know who to trust. All the boomers that listen to all these mainstream media outlets and have forced a lot of their opinions on their kids, and then like you talked about a little bit, that trickle down effect from our local communities, our families. It's hard to trust
It's a herd
thing.
mentality. It's a herd mentality, and there's more comfort. We've been taught that there's comfort and safety in that herd mentality. And if we step outside that herd mentality, then there's not comfort and safety. There's ridicule, and there is purposeful degradation of your beliefs because it goes against what the herd believes. But when you talk about trust, what I found for myself, and what many of my students have found, is that they were always looking outside themselves for validation, for finding who to trust, because I grew up trusting that the news was telling us the truth, that all policemen were good, that all teachers were good, that priests, oh, they were great, all of this stuff, right? Grew up believing that authority always knew better than me. So, and I think that most of us have been raised very similarly. So we give away our power to this outside, invisible or visible source. And what ends up happening is when that trust starts to fall apart, and that's exactly what's happening worldwide today. And that's by there's a lot esoterically unseen that's happening that is causing the awakening of many people to see that, wow, I can't trust my local police department, or I can't trust my government, or I can't trust the education system or the healthcare system for that matter. All these major systems that our beliefs have been built on are now crumbling. And as those crumble, then what do you do? Well, that's where I teach people how to turn inward so that you don't need the external validation, so that you learn to use what we're born with. We're born with abilities of discernment and wisdom, but that wisdom has been squashed and replaced with knowledge. And knowledge is manipulable. So it comes from an outside source. We can be conditioned through knowledge in either positive or negative ways. And unfortunately, at this point, I think we're waking up to realize that the knowledge that has replaced the innate wisdom that we're all born with, that we are not in touch with, has failed us.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you see, and I think that's the thing it's difficult for people because it's like, okay, I can't trust mainstream media. I can't trust, this and that. I think, there's a lot of boomers that are just, whether it's arrogance or what, they're just like, no, that's right. Or, you can't, oh yeah, is everything a scam? Is everything fake? But you see the drive towards, and the internet is a good and bad thing, right? Because it's like they're also using that to also try and make us feel like we can't trust any source of information. And then with AI, it makes it even harder to discern, some of these things. But that's why you've seen such a push towards, people kind of going back to old ways of living. I see so many pages of, backyard chicken raising and homesteading, and you see all these YouTube pages and people loving it and like a need to kind of go back to ancestral ways of living, and not only that, but just you see people going towards independent sources of media and YouTube and different people rather than just the main networks. And have you ever seen that video of all the like local news stations when they're all like repeating the same exact
Yes.
thing and
Mm-hmm.
same narratives and stuff like that, and they use a lot of those, again, like you were saying earlier, a lot of those fear-based words, and you don't even realize it. Like when you're watching it, I mean, it's so powerful, but it does it if you're not trained to look for that, or as we've all now learned to be a little bit trained to listen more to those things, it's easy to get frightened by it. I remember when COVID first started, and oh my God, there's this many people passed today, and this many people passed this day, and the death toll, and I mean it's hard in those moments of panic to kind of discern what is real, what's not. I think everyone was like, how bad could this be? No one really knew, but um
But
I
I
mean,
think now we're seeing that there was an agenda behind that. And that discernment, when you're seeing multiple, that reinforcement of what the boomers used to believe in, which or want to believe in, which is their nightly news broadcast, when they're seeing it on multiple stations, that's by design so that it's reinforcement, right? It's reinforcement of that agenda. And so the more times we hear something, the more apt we are to believe it. And so I think that it's crucial that YouTube and all the independent news channels that are out there, I mean, how many high profile journalists have left their positions because of the agendas that are being pushed, that they are not free to really be journalists. They're basically actors, they're talking heads. And so the ones that have integrity and the ability to move on and do something that's independent based, I think that it's still someone's opinion. However, if it's presented, if both sides of the coin are presented, then it does allow you to use your discernment. And I think that that's where we're headed. I think we're headed towards more information being available and using your discernment as to whether it's valid or not.
No doubt. And I think we're especially seeing that, as like, you know, as far as after COVID and all that kind of went away, and then and then the 55 years that, some of those it was 75, I think, for the vaccine research and stuff like that it was supposed to be hidden from us, and then there was outrage, so then it was 55 years, I think it's at now. But it's like that right there told me all I needed to know. When I heard that, I just wish I heard it before I got the vaccine to protect. I was told, "I'll get the vaccine, protect, your elders, protect, be careful. Let's try and get it so we can protect ourselves the most." And that fear in it, and I've said it before on here, and I'm not afraid to say it again. Like it did. Like I was like, man, well, I don't want to, hopefully it makes us a little bit more safer if any of us got it or whatever. But when I heard that, I wish I would have known that beforehand, that the information of how the vaccines were passed was not to be released for 3/4 of a century, because I think that definitely would have driven me away. It's like, what are they hiding? Why can't they be transparent? And that's the ultimate tale of like all this, and people are starting to realize it, and I am over the last few years, as well as I'm just growing up, getting older, and like it's like, oh no, I definitely cannot trust everything that even my own family is trying to tell me, whether they think it's helpful or not. Like there's so much fear put into it that you really have to listen to your own voice, like you were saying.
Yep. And I think that we have been discouraged from listening to our own voice. So we don't really know how to do that. And I know that when you're talking about the fear based, what happens is we either act or we react. And most of us are in reaction mode. So like when you're talking about, when terrible news comes down the pike, we go instantly into this reaction mode. And what I encourage my students to do is to practice observation. So sit back and just observe what is happening externally and then relate it to how it makes you feel. Because most of us are very out of touch with what it feels like in our body, where that news hits us. Does it give us chest pain? Do we have a stomach ache from it? Do we get a headache from it? Is our body sore? What is it that when we hear these type of things, what happens in our body? So when you act or when you react, but when I teach people how to sit back and be the observer. So just observe all of these things and watch all of these things go by like clouds passing in the sky, because this too shall pass. Now, there's times if a lion's running down the street and you're on that same street, well, then you probably better get out of there. But when it has to do with our mass media and our own well-being, then we still have been taught to parlay that outside of ourselves. Someone else always knows better. Other people outside of us, they're all experts. They know better than we do. And that's just not true. So I teach observation of your thoughts, observation of your emotions, observation of your feelings. And from that comes discernment. So you remove yourself from the onset of the emergency so that you can make a decision that is in your own highest good and that you're in touch with that intuitive innate self that you were born with, but
So
it's been conditioned out of us.
no doubt. I mean, I think there's a lot of people like you're saying. I mean, I don't disagree with that at all. That there's been a lot of people that were told, listen to your elders, trust the priest, trust the policeman, trust your teacher, and that's led a lot of people into a lot of real trauma, real issues in their lives. They're trying to do what they were taught and told, and they learned in a very harsh and heavy way that probably will affect the rest of their lives. Some of them that, oh no, I can't always listen to what others are saying. I have to really listen to myself. So you're saying in that what you found to rely on more of your own voices, you kind of try and take yourself out of that, get more logical, and just really think about, okay, what is this making me feel? Who's trying to give me this message? Do they have bad intentions behind it? Are they good potentially? Is it, so what is some of that? Can you get into more of that process, I guess, how to rely on your own voice?
Well, the process takes practice because, like I said, we have been conditioned away from that. It's not so much about logic because that's really what we're taught, and that's what is being used um, to condition us to believe or not believe in certain things. Is um, that logical part of us that if we throw a little fear in there, our logic's going to tell us, well, I'm gonna do what they say. Um,
That's the lion down the street. Oh my God, there's a million deaths today, and or over time with COVID. Oh my God, I need to get the jab. Yeah,
Right.
I got you.
All of that stuff. So essentially, what I do is I don't react, and which allows me to get the full picture and get in touch with my own innate intuition to tell me what it is I do or don't need to do. And sometimes it's not as instantaneous as reacting is, and we've been taught that that instantaneous reaction is desirable, when most of the times it's definitely not desirable and it's not even necessary. So just taking that time to reintegrate back into myself, to do research if I need to do research, but to really sit with myself because there is a higher part of all of us, a God part of all of us that knows. And like we had talked in the opening about wisdom and knowledge, that wisdom is in there. And we can use it in conjunction with knowledge, but wisdom, knowledge, and discernment, it just takes practice, John, because there's times when I think that no matter how good you are at listening to your intuition and uncovering your own innate wisdom, where you still question yourself. I mean, I still do. I've been practicing this for years and I still question the wisdom part of me because the fear starts to override that innate knowledge that or the innate wisdom that I have and starts to create those doubts, right? And so then the thoughts start to loop.
And then it can get you emotional or fear or oh my
Right.
God, or rather than taking over. Kind of, I think what you're getting at. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost like you call it, our innate wisdom, maybe from our ancestors or from God or from our conscience. But it's almost like an intuition of sorts, right? To
Yes.
to to lean on that helps to guide us towards really what's best for us and for our future.
And that will never fail you. Never. Your own intuition will never lead you astray.
Yep. I think
And
we've all had those moments. I mean, I've had multiple in my short life already where there's been times you don't lean on that, or you ask too many people and then you learn the hard way.
right.
Wow, I wish I would have just listened to myself, because I can't blame it on them now. First off, they don't even want to hear that anyways. And
Right.
you asked them for their opinion, they gave it, you leaned on it, but no one wants to accept any consequences if things go wrong. But if things go right, I told you, see, I told you, see, I told you,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right.
Um,
Which that's coming from an egoic place, right? That's from the
yeah,
ego. That's not from the purity of the soul. That's from the ego.
no
And
doubt.
so being the observer allows you to distinguish between your feelings and emotions. And how I always describe feelings are that's your soul tapping on your shoulder. When you get those feelings that just won't go away, those gut feelings, when you have those, we all have had them. We've had them really strong, and we've had little taps that we've ignored and done something else, and we've been sorry for it, right? But emotions, were very much a emotional society because we have all these senses, right? And we're here playing in these bodies as souls. And but emotions are thought based. Most emotions are thought based, and they happen in the mind. So what's the quality of your thoughts? The quality of your thoughts will be reflective in your emotions, not necessarily your feelings. Emotions can cause feelings, but true gut feelings come from the soul. That's a tap from the soul.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, because when you go against it, you definitely feel something. It's something innate. It's something that's been with us since, the dawn of time.
It's our
I'm
internal
sure.
guidance system. It's our GPS.
Yeah, it's our compass for sure,
Mhm.
for
Yes.
sure. And when you don't, not, I don't want to say obey it, but when you don't heed its guidance, you feel it. If something goes wrong or whatever, you definitely feel it that much more. It's that guidance. It's almost telling you in a way. See, I told you so. In a way, you feel it a little bit. It doesn't even have to tell you. You just feel it, like, and I feel like people in real life. I feel like people that are really like that, not like the people that I described a second ago, that are like, see, I told you so. I think some of the best people in life, they don't have to tell you. Like, if you chose something else, or they knew they were right, their ego doesn't have to get in the way of, see how good I told you to do this or that or whatever. Some of the best friends and family and stuff like that, it's more of a gentle guidance, but that helps you to lean on. I feel like your own, teach a man how to fish kind of thing. Now,
Correct. Yes.
then I can make my own choices and lean on my own thing, rather than just let me come to you or 10 different people, and leave feeling I don't know what the heck I want now. I feel
Yeah.
like I gotta uphold to some of these other people's standards, or their opinions, or what some of they said. So
Well, I think that you bring up a valid point with the support that you have around you. It is crucial. It is crucial for us to always pass down teaching how to fish rather than just handing you the fish, right? And you're going to have variations on how you fish because you're a unique individual and there's no one like Jon Brys. So, because of that, when you have a tribe that's supporting you, even if they think you're doing the wrong thing, even if they support you in that, that's where your greatest value is, right? That's where your biggest lessons are learned.
when you lean on
That's
your
where,
own understanding.
right. And that's where you learn to trust yourself and know that you're supported by your community when you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I think when you it's hard too for like, because especially if you have like, strict parents or parents that want to lay down the law, or the lay of the land for you, and it is the way it is, and da 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 da, and you know like, it's definitely a skill that I feel like you have to learn over time, as far as like, even if this voice or that voice, even if that person loves me a lot and know they want the best for me, but at the end
Mhm.
of the day, I lay my head on my pillow and I deal with the consequences of my own actions, good, bad, and different.
Yep.
Um, yeah, there's something that innate, that conscience, that intuition, that wisdom inside you. It definitely, it'll speak to you and let you know in those moments. Hey, yeah,
Well,
you might want to, even if I fall on my own sword, like I caused it, instead of like, like I said, when people give you opinions, they don't want the consequences or the backlash if anything, goes wrong. They don't really want to hear it all the time. I'm not saying my best friends or anything like that. I'm just saying some people, or some family, you think they love you and da da da, and you learn in those moments, whoa, maybe, yeah, next time I'm gonna lean on my own discernment versus versus others. But
well, and I think that from family and friends, generally, it's in love that they're trying to save you from yourself or whatever it is that they're doing, right? And so, but remember that their limitations are such that based on their conditioned upbringing, what they experienced in survival mode as they were growing up and as they were maturing into adults, what was normal for them, what worked and didn't work for them in that time. But to remember that we're what most people really don't look at is how we are always creating. Every single split second of the day, we are creating. We have a chance to recreate something new or to create something new. And we're either creating consciously or we're creating unconsciously. Most of us continually create unconsciously.
yeah,
We just let life flow. We do what everyone tells us to do.
we
We
eat the Cheetos every night, and
Exactly.
that adds
Path of
up, and
least
eventually,
resistance. Yes. And so when you learn how to consciously create your life and start to be in charge of your own self, then, like you said, if you fall on your own sword, you fall on your own sword. But to remember that every generation has its set of circumstances. But what most of the generations don't see is that they are always creating. But in in a lot of the previous generations, it was unconscious creation. They were just doing what they were told. They were being law abiding, good citizens doing what they were told. So it's not
authority.
malice that they're trying to, that they're, it's not malice that they're trying to guide you.
No, for
It's in
sure.
love that they're trying to guide you, but it's from a limited understanding and a very limited belief system. So, and most of us don't even know we have limited beliefs until we start to get curious enough to question why do I believe that? Where did that belief come from? And so a lot of it when I do ancestral healing with clients, it's about beliefs that are literally embedded in the DNA that get passed down in the environment because everything is energy. So even thoughts are energy. But those words are energy. What we hear around the Christmas dinner table, what we hear about grandpa's stories or great grandpa's stories, although fascinating, um, still come with their own sense of trauma and conditioning and reasons why they did what they did in their lifespan. But time is moving really fast right now. Things are changing really drastically. From day to day, things are changing. So that means we've got to change as well. Those old ideas, although may have suited each person perfectly at that time, isn't really relevant anymore. And we may find things that were relevant yesterday that aren't relevant tomorrow because of how fast things are changing. And I'm not just talking about technology, but I'm talking about human consciousness. Human consciousness is changing very rapidly. And it needs to, because it's time for us to get off this dead center, this stuck in the mud. It's time. So,
No doubt. And, it's funny. It's kind of like your parents were almost the first Fox and CNN. I mean, they were almost like creating emotional responses to like both of their different voices or opinions or whatever, but it does create a almost an emotional, like, okay, I'm going to follow authority or whatever you say, or
yeah.
but and you see that a lot, obviously, like I said, like in the media, and the way they use distractions, to control and divide us. Like with, or, when the pandemic happened, or like when, today, Trump being found guilty of 34 counts in the Stormy Daniels hush money case, as I brought up. I thought you made a really good point that these things are distractions. Ukraine being invaded by Russia, even though, they never talked about NATO, creeping on its border with missiles for years and years and years. Like if someone was at the border of Mexico and the U.S. and they brought missiles, like we would just treat that like, oh yeah, whatever, it's all good. Like it's definitely threatening. The military industrial complex, which eats off of that, and they feed their families off of that. It just seems like they constantly want to create chaos to distract, control, and divide us. How do you think some of the ways that in which we can, obviously listening to your own voice, like you said, building a community of others that think outside the box and listen to their own voice and discern, with themselves first. But how do you think that it can be less, obviously there's a trend going that way to independent media and independent thinkers, and Tucker Carlson being fired from Fox, probably one of the greatest things for him
Yeah.
and all of us. But how can we become more united, less black and white, and less left and right and blue and red? And how can we become more united and more powerful against the elites and what they want us to always believe?
Well, John, I think that there's several answers to that, but I think the biggest one is your own personal sovereignty. The sovereign being that you were born to be is very threatening to a control system. Because when you disempower people, when you create all this chaos, if you think about it, everywhere you go out to eat, there's TVs blaring. And on top, I mean, millions of TVs in the place. And on top of that, there's a radio playing. And then there's people yelling over. You can't even have a discussion anywhere. It's at the clothing stores and wherever you go to buy your clothing. It's literally at the gas pumps. It's everywhere. That is created chaos and created distractions so that your brain stays in a fight or flight state of being. We are not meant to sustain our lives in that fight or flight place. And so it wreaks havoc on our body. So I think that one of the solutions that I would entertain, or I do entertain, is I don't go to places that have super loud music. I avoid chain restaurants that are owned by huge conglomerates. I make sure that I know where I'm investing my money, so that if it's companies that are not sustainable, that are just greedy companies and I do my research, I will not invest there. If money talks in the world that we live in, and the elites that are controlling this, yeah, the only way to hit them is to be sure of who you are, and then to not spend money in their system. And so obviously sometimes, John, it's unavoidable. But you know, I'm a nurse by training, and I went to naturopath school, and I'm an energy healer. And so I have a multi-pronged approach to medicine. But when I, years and years and years ago, working in the hospital, I could see that all we're really doing is pushing medicine for everybody's problems. Well, if you have obesity, then maybe other things need to be addressed. If you have diabetes, it doesn't matter what you have, other things need to be addressed. And it just didn't really look like it made a lot of sense to me. It just didn't feel right. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, but it just didn't feel right. But I think now, in hindsight, when I look back with all the education that I've had and all the study that I've done, is that what I see is the healthcare complex is breaking down slowly, right? I think pretty quick since COVID, but prior to that, it started to break down pretty slowly. But what it's doing is it's telling us in very subtle ways, you need to be responsible for yourself. You need to be responsible for your health, because there's going to come a day where you're not going to be able to afford to go to a doctor. And God forbid you need to be hospitalized. You won't be able to afford that either. And so I think it's already gone to only people, the elites, who can receive top shelf care, or the last of the few generations who still have good pensions and good health insurance, right, that are actually accepted. But that's going away. And so when I look back in hindsight, it's about taking personal responsibility. So when you ask, what can you do? It's to take personal responsibility. Know where your money is going. Be careful of what you're buying. Even if everybody's doing it, do you really want to do it that way? I don't know. Sometimes we do, because the peer pressure is too much, or we get caught up in the excitement of it. And that's part of being human. That's part of being lovably human. However, if overall, each day, even one time a day, you think about whether you want to grab that bag of Cheetos and eat that bag of Cheetos, and what really is this food, right? And or you just think about where when you turn on that TV, what are you going to watch? Are you going to watch blood and gore? Are you going to watch something that actually enlightens you? Are you going to watch mainstream TV? Are you going to watch what everyone else is watching on Netflix? Or are you going to find other channels or other applications that give more interesting and more expansive ways of thinking and learning? It's really an individual choice that I think is, once we each make it one by one, then we start to make impact.
No doubt. Yeah, we're only as strong as the as each person is in the group. Our weakest link. Depending on how weak they are. If we have a bunch of weak people, weak-minded, don't think for themselves, accept what they want when they're told they're going to get forced with the jab in the military and in healthcare, that happened, right? I mean, that's evil for someone else to. I mean, it's truly evil. Like, I don't care if the motive's for money. That's the definition of evil, to tell others what they must do, what they must put in their body. Um,
That goes on all day, John, and it's been going on for eons of time. And so that's where the wake up call is, right?
we have
That's
to
where we
resist
have a
that.
wake up call. And I always use this. this may have turned some people off because it's not really about religion, because I believe that religion is something that is an indoctrination that's taught, and spirituality is something that we're born with. It's innate within us. But Jesus didn't know anything about Christianity. And but when he studied in like 13 different mystery schools, and he traveled all around, um, learning everything that he could, remembering who he was, as and the powers that he had. And we chose to worship that instead of what he really said was, we are everything he is and greater. So when you think about, like, sometimes wanting to preach to people or to try to get people on your side, it's one thing to have a conversation about it, but I think it's another thing to try to get people to see your way. Because what he did was he walked through and he performed all these miracles, showing everyone exactly what they were capable of: self healing, healing others, creating something from nothing, having faith in their power. And he showed everyone what they were capable of, but he never stayed in one place because people were so desperately clinging to him, saying, please, you need to stay for another month to heal the rest of the community. No, he showed you how to do it, and he did that by demonstration, but then he just kept moving on, right? So I think that it's really important for us to keep moving on too, like to understand that power within us, to understand that that is within us. And it's just been, I look at it like a hose. And if the hose is pinched at all, well, then you only just get a dribble out the other end. But when that hose is open and it's full throttle at the spigot, you've got a beautiful flowing energy going through there. But most of us have, because of these, everything that we've talked about previously, we've got kinked hoses, right? And so, yeah, I feel like I kind of got off a topic there. There was something about, um,
You're good. You're good. You're saying what was that word you said? Kintos. I couldn't hear. I don't know if I couldn't hear you right, or I just am unsure of that word. What was that? Kin Kintosis, or you said something. I don't know. I don't know. I must have misheard it or something like that. I'm not sure.
what was
Um,
it around?
I don't know. It was one of the last words you used in your last sentence before you were talking about. I think I got off topic or whatever.
Well, I don't remember what it was, but
Anyways,
that empowerment is who we really are.
yeah.
And we have been led to believe that we're born dirty and that we're sinful and we need something outside of ourselves to absolve our sins. And
Some authority to listen to.
right,
It's come from
everything's
somewhere else.
all
Like
right
it comes from
outside of
somewhere else.
ourselves, outside of ourselves. When the truth is, we're all God's in the making. We're all a reflection of God. Whatever you think God is, experiencing life as John, life as Nadine. And it's all about the experience. There really isn't a goal, there really isn't a purpose other than experience. And what does experience do? It gives us expansion. See, because love expands, it's expansive. So when we have love for ourselves and we have love in our hearts, it naturally spills out to everyone else. But when we have fear, anger, hatred, resentment, guilt, all those things, it's contracting, and it's very contracting in the heart center. And so we get stuck. We just can't move forward in that. It's like quicksand. You can't go anywhere in there. And it breeds self loathing. And I think that a lot of people are either, a lot of people that I meet are either in self loathing. They're not everyone, but many people that come to me are either in self-loathing with all this self-doubt and this deprecation of themselves, or they are super egotistical, and they're and but that also is a sign that when the ego's in overdrive, that it's not that the ego is a bad thing. It's just that when it's in overdrive, your soul is pinched off, right? And all the messages from your soul is pinched off. So I really promote self-care. And self-care is super multifaceted, right? There's a lot of levels to self-care. And that can be from whether you choose to eat those Cheetos, or it can be about your appearance. It can be about material things, the car you drive up in, the house that you invite people to. But the more important part of self-care, in my estimation, and what I've experienced, is in my inner world. So those moments of reflection, of self-reflection, the quality of my thoughts, um, what my emotions and feelings are, sitting in meditation so that I can let go of the trauma of being human for a few, and receive receive that love, because I've always looked at prayer as like asking for something, like, and there's nothing wrong with that, because the universe is abundant and it will give you everything that you want. So if you're not sure on what you want, you get a lot more if you're not sure. If you're, it just responds. The law of attraction is very real as far as like attracts like. And so whatever's going on in your life, if you question it, look around you. And what you have around you is what's going on in your thoughts. That's the quality of your thoughts, and that's what you're creating. And so self-care is just really important, and that reflective, more in-depth self-care is what is going to open that heart center up and open you up to the love for yourself, because we've been taught that neglecting the self is noble. I think men and women alike in different ways have been taught self-sacrifice, there's something unbelievable about self-sacrifice, when the truth is that I always like to use the word self-full. And when we're full in ourselves, when we've been taught to nurture us first and put everybody else on the back burner, well, that's called selfish. They call it selfish, but I don't call it that, because when we've been taught to nurture ourselves, and we teach ourselves how to nurture ourselves and to keep our glass full at all times. A full glass, if you keep adding drips of water to it, will automatically overflow, right? But the glass never gets empty. But how most of us have been taught to live is you're selfish if you're thinking about yourself. And so what we do is we take that glass, and I'm using this as a metaphor, but we take that glass and we empty all the water out of it and give it to everybody around us who needs it first. And then we have to crash for the weekend or crash for the day and fill that cup back up again so that we can start giving it out again. Well, that's not sustainable. And it's also not very loving to ourselves to do that.
And if we're not the best version, I don't mean to cut you off, but if we're not the best version of ourselves, and if we don't love ourselves fully, how can even the quality of that water, so to speak, that we're giving out to people, it's not even good water. It's like it's like Meyer Members Mark,
right.
a plastic bottle water versus some
Yes.
Fiji or something that's in a glass bottle, that mountain water that's in that glass bottle, that's expensive stuff from Whole Foods. Yeah, I mean, it's you can't what's that saying? You get what you give, and if you're
Mhm.
always exhausted, if you're always drained, I mean, yes, you might be giving to others, but even still, it's at a much less quality of yourself than what you're made to be.
Well, and I think that some people see that they're looking for love outside themselves. I mean, when I was young, sometimes I see people even my age still doing it. They're looking for love, that hallmark love but what they're looking for it for is to fill a void within them. So that's why in the beginning, all relationships are just like, oh, I'm so loved, and you feel like you're on top of the world, and there's nothing better than that feeling.
and they ignore a million red flags and
Right.
keep it going, and then they're comfortable with somebody that they never should have been, and then it's a
Right.
disaster. How do I disaster control? How do I get out of this disaster and mitigate, so it's as least painful as possible to get out of it.
Yeah, and what we don't understand is that love is an energy. Everything is equal energetic exchange. We can't possibly love somebody else more than we love ourselves because it's an equal energetic exchange. So once you understand that loving yourself to your greatest potential is then what you start to attract to you is other people who also love themselves. Now you have a healthy union, right? Doesn't matter whether it's a friendship, doesn't matter whether it's a romantic relationship, a work relationship. You start to attract a different quality, higher vibrational person into your life. And because you're vibrating higher. So that attraction, so then the love, the energy exchange is of a higher frequency. It's not desperate. It's not filling a void.
Yeah,
It's icing on a cake, you see.
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the most unattractive thing about some people, that the type that just goes, I mean, I almost feel bad for them, the type that goes from one, they show to the world, this is who I love, and they go from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. I mean, it's like, oh, it's like, that's like, what? Yeah, why can't you just sit with yourself and think and breathe and go take a walk in the park and eat a Snickers before getting to the next one? I mean, you can't even blink before getting in the next relationship. I mean, it's like,
Yep.
it's unattractive, and it's also like, it's, I don't know, I feel bad for those people. Like, it's and I've known them, and and I don't know, it's sad. It really is. It's sad because that's a person that's very not um in touch with themselves and who they really are, in loving themselves, most likely.
Right. And I think that that's what I'm really getting at here is when you raise your own self, when you love your own self and you love every part of yourself and you're really comfortable in who you are, then the world is your oyster, right? Because you're not going to attract that desperation to you if you're not desperate, right? And so if we were taught that instead of this romantic, like Harry met Sally kind of love and or whatever, all this Hallmark commercialism about this desperate love, and then I think that we would have a much healthier society as far as relationships go because everybody would be fulfilling their own needs rather than going to someone else hoping that they will fulfill their needs.
Yep. And before filling up their water cup and being quenched before they go and they try and give a bunch of water to everybody else. They
Right,
can't. They're not even taking. They're not even replenishing. They're not even hydrating themselves.
right.
So
But people are, think about it on an airplane. When the oxygen masks come down, what do they tell you? Put it on you first,
first,
not on your kid.
yeah,
Well, it's the same concept. Why would that be any different with self-care and self-fullness?
yeah,
Why do we consider that selfish?
yeah. You have to help yourself before you can help others, and
Right,
and that's kind of, I think, for someone like myself, we were talking before the pod started, but like, for someone like myself, I have a huge heart. I want great things for this country and my community and my state. Um, I want to help out, people that have been affected. Like I said, people that have families that have have family members in them that have taken their own lives or victims of gun violence. Um, and uh, you know, I really want to help other people, but this stage of my life is uh, it's learning.
Hmm.
It's getting knocked down and picking yourself up off the canvas. I'm trying these different things and none of them go right, and I got to go on to more different things, and that's scary again. I mean, like Mike Tyson said, you know, like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, you know,
I love that one.
and it's so true. I mean, life kicks your ass. You think I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna take this path and I'm gonna do this. And ever since I was 5, I thought, you know, and it probably sounds crazy to people that aren't wired with a kind of a warrior, protective, you know, mindset. You know, like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go play in the NFL, and I had enough talent to do so, and I had the mindset at times to do so, and that was a total blessing. But it's just, you know, as time moves on, as things happen, as you get in the wrong relationship, as you don't take care of yourself, or as maybe that whole thing, maybe I was doing that to, you know, to make my dad happy who played college football, and I
Hmm.
didn't even really like football. And it's like over time, it's like you don't want to give it away. It's like that was my only path, and I worked on it for 17, 18 years. And so there's a struggle, there's a resistance maybe to get out of that path when you've gone so far down one path for so long. Even though I always knew I'm going to go to the NFL, I'm going to play in that, and I'm going to start some businesses, and I'll be good, and I'll take care of mom and Kate, and um, you know, but man, I tell you what, I keep trying, and I keep trying, and I keep picking myself up off the canvas, and but that's the thing. I think I'm a little anxious to, you know, I quit corporate America to come back home and try and, like, again, try and find myself a little bit. You know, I was
Hmm.
working at a Fortune 13 company. You want to talk about soulless. You want to talk about, like,
Yeah.
hey, that innovation and that idea you have about improving a process that's definitely broken and we know it. Yeah, shut up and go sit down at your desk, buddy. You know,
Yeah.
like, and just disrespectful. And you could tell those people that are in management above you, they don't love themselves. And I mean, like, they
Yeah.
don't take care of themselves. And if they do, it's, yeah, we go to a bar here and there, and it's this fake passive aggressive kind of, it's like, that's not how we're supposed to communicate with each other. And I come back home and I try 4 different things, and, you know, I get my ass kicked, and it's like, okay, what's another few things? And but I think I'm scared. What I'm trying to get to my point of is, I'm scared to go down a certain path again that's so specialized, that's so whatever, and I get so far down that path again that I go, oh shit, not again.
Well, you know what, John?
You know, I go there, I get there, and I go 17, 18 year, 20, and I go, oh God, now I'm 45, and now uh I got 6 kids because I'm not going to believe what the elites tell me that I should cut off my thing and become trans and not have any kids, and, you know, like, that I'm going to procreate and have children. I mean, you know, like, I don't know, like, you know, I tried making a joke and then I forgot what I was saying, but
Well,
you
I
know,
think you're getting really far into the future at 45.
yeah, yeah,
First of all, what I would tell you to do is to whatever your passion is, it doesn't matter how many things you've tried. It doesn't matter. You've tried. That's the part that matters is
yeah,
that you followed a desire, you followed a passion, but you followed it to the end. And at that end, there's is born a new desire and passion. Follow that until there's nothing, till you do not have the desire and passion anymore.
Ride it till
And
the wheels come
another
off.
thing will reveal itself to you. And keep going like that until you find that place where your passion, like in podcasting. Do you know how many podcasts there are out there that help young men, that help people spiritually, that help people that are lost in this world? With your age, you've got your whole life to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm 60, buddy. So,
Yeah,
it's okay.
there is no
It's
mountaintop.
okay. There's no end. It doesn't end. Evolution is
Yeah,
just that. There's not a beginning of evolution and an end of evolution. Evolution just continues, right? But where you're feeling the pressure is from what the rest of the world is saying you should do, or what you're seeing people doing. In comparison, comparing yourself to others is evil to yourself.
it's the thief of joy, as they say.
It is. Yes. And so,
Yeah, some people are homeless at 26 where I'm at. Some people are multimillionaires, as you see all over Instagram, the snapshots of their best depiction of their best, tiny little windows into their life. So it is. I think a lot of people my age and just people in general now with social media and stuff, it's overwhelming. It's like,
yeah.
oh my God, there's before it used to be like, hey, I read this in a book, or I talk to, the neighbor down the street, and that's that. And I watch some predictive programming. They're going to tell me on the 4 channels we got on cable. Now it's like, there's no end, and it's a little overwhelming. I'm happy that, we have, some of these independent, outlets, and it's not just like, this is what they told me to read on a teleprompter, and it's my job, and I'm doing it, and I'm not even thinking about it. No one's thinking about it. I mean, I'm glad we're becoming more woke in a way, but yeah, it's just to get back to what we were talking about. I just, it is. I think it's overwhelming to a lot of people, that are maybe getting out of something, trying to find a different passion, or rediscover themselves. Like it's definitely a process, and that's okay. And I'm cool. Like I'm cool with it in a way. Like I'm not even like when things have worked and kind of worked, and then or I didn't like parts of them, so I got out of certain things. Or it's like that's okay. I have to keep going and not give up.
Yep.
And like because I know I have an idea of the vision of where I want to get to, and it in a large way, I think what would be super fulfilling is being able to whether have a platform and then talk to other people, teach another man how to fish, and then not only that, but be able to maybe crowdfund money from people watching the channel, and then we give it to those families impacted by that, and there's other people struggling, or people trying to make a better way for themselves and their families. Like I think that would be really cool, and especially with what I've gone through. Like but I'm not a guy that's like, oh, I had a paper cut, like, oh, I'm traumatized, or they call they trauma, like not this new age trauma, but like when things have really gone on or happened, or you really get punched in the mouth, like it's that also, I think it could definitely complicate that. Okay, where do I go? But
Sure.
if it's positive, if what you want is, it's not only good for you, but it's for a bigger purpose than yourself. That's what I'm shooting for. That's what I really want. I like not only to help myself, but to eventually be able to help other people. But I can't give out my water when I have to fill up my cup first, and I have to go through that stage of gaining stability and figuring out my way a little bit,
Well, you're
first.
very fortunate that you have the fortitude and the support to be able to explore this in your life.
And I haven't taken on the responsibilities as well. My grandma was saying that to me. She goes, well, she goes, well, because at one time my grandma had said she wanted to be a uh, work in the stock market somehow. I don't know how. And that's what she thought she was gonna live her life. And she was like, and then I had 3 kids by 21, and I had those responsibilities, and they had a job opening for a teacher. And almost not to say like she didn't have a choice. Like fortunately, like she really loved it, and that was great. Like it ended up working out really
Sure.
well for her, I think.
Mhm.
But she sometimes will tell me that, like, hey, like, oh, you need to do this and that and this and that and oh, and it's like, but grandma, I also did not choose those. I'm blessed and fortunate that I have not chosen a lot of responsibilities early on in my
Yes.
life that has then locked me down, because then otherwise I can't quit the job at AT&T to then, you know,
Right.
to then move around. So or to come back home to like, wait, whoa, put on the brakes. Like, I don't, I don't even want to do
What
it.
your responsibility is right now, John, is to learn how to create, learn how to consciously create what it is you want, and to find out what it is that lights your fire, right? And you would have a few ideas,
Yeah,
and but that's your job right now. You're afforded that ability to learn how to create the life that you want.
no
That's
doubt.
amazing. Many people at 26, they're looking to get married. They're in a hurry to do something. I mean, they're always in a hurry to do something that's going to make them happy, right?
Yeah,
And although what you've done may not have made you over the moon,
yeah,
it's also giving you tremendous amounts of experience that there's no way that you would have ever had. So, in all the trauma and the tragedy that you may go through, the one question that I find is very beneficial to ask oneself is, out of all of this, what have I learned? And
yeah,
if you don't know, a lot of times we don't know what the answer is, right? We don't know, we don't know, we don't know. And years might go by where we don't know what that answer is. And then all of a sudden, one day, as long as we keep asking that question and keep probing a little deeper and a little deeper, all of a sudden we get slapped upside the head with it, right? Oh, I did learn that. Oh, wow.
the light
Without that
bulb comes on.
experience, I would not have been able to do this, that, and I would never be where I'm at.
Yep.
So,
I'm
inside of every trauma is this beautiful gift. Like I said, it takes a long time to see it.
no,
But
no,
in
I agree with you, and that's already, like, I've already seen so much. Like, I'm blessed and fortunate that, first off, I had a lot of family around. Like, when my dad passed, and then 6 months later, my uncle passed the same way.
yeah.
My dad's brother, and there's a lot of blessing. I'm very, very grateful in many ways. Like, think about it, Nadine. Like a lot of people, they take that and use that as a crutch the whole rest of their life, or
Hmm.
they take that and they use that and they become addicted to alcohol and drugs, or just living the wrong way, or whatever. I'm very fortunate, whatever that the internal wisdom inside of me that said, whoa, just, it was almost weird. I almost had an anxiousness about doing anything. I mean, hitting a joint, or in relaxing at nighttime on a weekend when it's totally fine to do so, or have a drink, or but in a way it was kind of a blessing that that anxiousness was there in a way, even though I was like traumatized in a way. I was in shock in a way. It was almost like, well, thank God I didn't, like, because I really feel that, like, there's so many people I see that, like, they lose someone, and they're never the same, or especially if it's in a tragic way like that, they lose someone and they're they're hurt forever. I've tried so hard. I've gone to therapy. I've done my fair share. And I go every once in a while to, a little maintenance, but
Yeah.
I, it had, like, in its own way, like, I think I will in turn for that, like you said, the equal and opposite energy and that force, like a really negative thing like that happen, a really like traumatic. I call that, like, that's a true part of, like, trauma. Like when you lose someone, like,
Oh, yeah.
tragically, like, that's true trauma. And
Yep. That's
like,
a major trauma.
and when you have such an, it, I call it, that's evil as well. That's the devil, or whether, and I'm not totally religious as far as one religion or man-made religion. No, I'm not, but I'm spiritual, and I think of, like, that's evil. That's evil, like, tugging on you. And I had a saying there for a while, like when I was dealing with the aftermath of that, like, sometimes, like, sometimes I wake up, and evil, or the devil, is staring me in the face when I look in the mirror and I say "fuck you," and that's harsh. That's violent in a way of speaking, but it's like when there's such an evil there, and it's true evil. It's like that's an evil in which that could tempt you to go down, like I said, a real bad road or whatever. Um, an equal and opposite force, right? A good force
Mhm.
has to be there as well. And
Right.
like, yeah, I don't know. I forgot what I was gonna say with that. But yeah, what do you
Well, I think, John, what this is affording you is we had talked earlier about ancestral, things coming down through our ancestral lineage. And um, I think with the buck is stopping with you. You see, because
Amen.
you are going to be able to, what you're doing now is you're changing the past and you're changing the future
It's generational
by,
curses as well, with men in my family, and,
right. And it's
that have destroyed
ancestral
families.
trauma, right? It's ancestral trauma that's passed down in the literal DNA. And so, what you're doing is you're gaining and gathering all of these tools and all of this life experience
To
and being
protect myself in some way.
open
Yeah.
to you don't even need to protect yourself because the openness and the open mindedness, the open heartedness that you're approaching this with that is your shield. That is your savior. That is what you're giving that to yourself, you see. So the buck stops with you. So your children will not experience this. I tell my clients, and there's a million different family traumas that you can use. It can be, sexual trauma. It can be alcoholism. It can be all kinds of different things. But what happens is that over generation after generation, the same old keeps happening, right? Dad beats the kids beat their kids. It just keeps going on and on. And there's all this oppression, and it's a mindset. It's the way that the thoughts work. It's the way that it's learned behavior. It's lack of coping skills. It's lack of being able to open up your mind to something different than what you've experienced or what you've been taught. And so the alcoholism continues and the beating continues until one day the black sheep of the family stands up and says, yeah, you know what? There's not going to be any drinking at my house, and there's not going to be any beating at my house, and there's not going to be any of that shit going on. And the black sheep, of course, that's the one that's standing out. And now everybody in the family is ganging up on the black sheep saying, oh, that person's nasty or whatever it is, right? Because they're doing better for themselves.
Or they're losing their mind because they're choosing a different way. They're ridiculed. They're looked at
Right,
weirdly. They're
right.
not with the cool kids in the family or the friend group anymore.
Right. But what they've actually done is they've done exactly what you're doing. The buck stops with them, right? So now their family tree is going to look totally different because they're consciously creating their environment. They're not just succumbing to unconscious creation of more of the same. And you see this all the time throughout generations of families where you got that black sheep that everyone talks about, right? But when you get to know the black sheep, you realize that the black sheep many times has stepped out of a terribly dysfunctional and multi-generational trauma that's been on rinse and repeat throughout an entire family. And you, because of your willingness and your openness, you are tasked with that responsibility. And I believe you've created that for yourself.
Well, amen. I think that was really beautiful. Thank you for that. I have a few sayings here in my office, and not only that, but just some different things. That I try and remind myself with that I will be the first of my kind like me, and I truly believe it. I believe it with every fiber in my entire body and in my soul that I will treat others the way I want to be treated. I will create a beautiful family environment. I struggle with that, those two different roads though. If I pick this road, you know, it might be this and that. It might, it might fill this desire, this, you know, to get that anger out or to be a part of a community, but maybe it's not a good one. Maybe I shouldn't go down that road because that's not going to give me, I think, in my future a lot. It's not going to give
Sure.
me that family and that family structure and that stability. I call it stability a lot. And a lot of times growing up, like we didn't, no one in our family really, discusses anything, I feel like, or it's looked down upon to like when I'm just talking about the way that my life was at times I have been shut down or looked at as I'm like depressed. It's like, no, like that's just the way my life was in certain ways. And it kind of has led to it's led to isolation ever since I was
Mhm.
home in September and stuff like that. Like a little bit, it's gotten better now, but, um, cause it's not easy. It's not easy being the first one. It's not easy to go, hey,
No.
the way you've been behaving towards this, and that person, and I'm the only one that's ever stuck up to you. Hey, shut that shit down when I'm around. And you see that evil inside of them, and it's traumas that they were brought
Right.
up with or whatever, and they try and come back and attack that good inside of you, that good that says that ain't evil doesn't live here anymore. It doesn't live on this street. It doesn't live within the community of my family or my friend group or whatever it is. And like some of the things I have here in my office, I'd like to read them off. I have one thing, I just typed it up one day. Be the first, zero excuses. It's a little negative maybe, but it's what I felt, and I don't know if it is good subconscious programming in a way, but it's be the first, zero excuses, no one cares. And that no one cares thing is about when I have tried to bring up, hey, I don't like the way this is being run or the way this goes in our family or, blah, 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 blah. And it's met with just the people that just program, keep it the same, keep it the same. Um,
Closed thinking, limited in the box.
yep,
Don't even, you put a baby mouse or baby anything in a box and leave it there its whole life. It never knows that there's outside of the box.
yep.
Most of us are that
Crabs in a
way.
bucket, crabs in a
Right.
bucket, they call it too. Yeah.
Right. It's same thing, So remember that stay stay as much out of your head and in your heart as you can. Be led by your heart and you'll never be led astray. You will be led astray by overthinking and But the isolation part, it's hard to be a way shower. It just is. It's not an easy job.
No.
I mean, Jesus was crucified for it. It's not an easy job. I'm not saying that I'm
Not saying
Jesus
we're
or that you're
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
All I'm saying
I know what
is
you're getting
that
at.
it's no matter, I mean, you can take anybody that's wildly successful at what they do, you they still will be crucified by enough people that but they never question themselves. So continue to be a light, continue to be a way shower, Jon. And it's not that you're swimming upstream, it's you're swimming with everyone else, but you're swimming a little faster. That's all. And they're threatened by the fact that you're swimming a little bit faster, right?
I swear to God, that there are people in which, and even older people that live the majority of their lives, and they're almost done. There is an ego factor in which, like when I was in the football thing or whatever, like people want to see you do well, but they don't. There's a saying: people want to see you do well, but they don't want to see you doing better than them. And there's a
Right.
lot of people that it's a sick mindset. It's people that they say they love you. It's close. What you've thought have been close family. It's whatever, and it almost like your jaw, your mouth just drops because it's like, man, I thought you loved me. That ain't love to me. That ain't.
Remember what I said about love?
Yeah.
You look at how someone loves themselves, not egoically, but how they truly love themselves and that peacefulness that they carry inside, right? If they have that, they can love you the same way. However you see them loving themselves is how they're going to love you.
Yep. Unless they're a narcissist, and then no, just
Well,
kidding.
there's that. That's a whole nother ball of wax. We don't have time for that tonight. I can tell you that. But no, seriously. And that's something to really, I live by that, right? I live by that. Really watching how other people treat themselves. And there's times when it's painful for me to say I don't really want to be around them anymore, right?
That is weird too, right? Even if they are family or close
Right.
friends or whatever they are, like that is weird,
And I
like
call that compassionate action. All I have for you now, I love you, and all I can do is have compassionate action towards you. And what that means for me is that when I think of you, I'll think of you in love. And but I have to limit my contact with you because I mean, I don't say that out loud necessarily,
yeah.
but that's a conversation I'm having with myself. Well, I need to have limited contact with you because until something changes, right? Until something changes that's beneficial for both of us. Because we are encouraged to have very toxic relationships. I mean, look at everything on TV and in movies and books, everything. It's very toxic. And so we are just parroting what we have seen. And when we start to wake up to see the error in those ways, we can have compassion because more than likely we've been there too, right? But it doesn't mean we should continually subject ourselves to that kind of energy because that's all it is. All of life is just energy. Our bodies are energy. The table you're sitting at, the walls that are around you, the water we're drinking, everything is made up of an energy. And so, do you choose to have it in your environment or not? And sometimes when you choose not to, it can feel very isolating for a while, and because there's a void, right? Until we've all worked on ourselves enough to bring ourselves to the level that we want to be at and start attracting new behaviors or new people into our lives.
Yeah. I think it's almost like that, that saying about like in when I'm referencing like just a little bit back in our conversation where we had talked about, kind of like being the first, like I talk on, like I think on all the time, being the first of the way that I would like to have, like, maybe it's a so-called patriarchy, maybe it's just the head of the family, the whatever, like when that saying that about like when that first, like as you call it, the black sheep, when that first person steps outside of what is normal, it is almost that question of what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. Like,
Mhm.
and I feel that like, and even with the passing of my father, like, and when you talk about these energies, right? Like that was a very negative energy the way that happened, but and that could have sent me, maybe I come back with a low vibrational negative energy in my life, but I feel like like, and I feel like that is from God. That feeling that I have, that I've been blessed with, to think, no, 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 I'm gonna come back at that with such a thing that, or like we will help so many people, X amount of people, or whatever. That's the energy that I'm coming around with.
Right.
I'm going to talk with others in my family and stuff like that with empathy. I'm going to think in their shoes first. I'm going to walk
Yeah.
in their shoes for a mile in my head, and think about, well, that could have caused that, and that could have caused it. And maybe that's why they're a little bit like this. Um, and-
Compassion.
yeah. And I feel like a lot of people, they don't even consider that. And it's
No.
unbelievable that maybe they don't have time, or or they could say that, but
All the chaos keeps them from even considering it, Jon.
I think that's a good point. Yeah. That chaos and emotional, that
Survival.
fear,
Hmm.
that primal fight or flight, or just shut down mode that we
Right.
all have in us.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's real. It's real. And, I hope that I don't know if I'm going to live to see the day, but hopefully my grandchildren will live to see the day where we're not always in survival mode, where we've got a more equitable society that allows people space to be and to be creative and to be who they are. I'm just hoping that if my grandchildren don't, I'm hoping my great grandchildren do. And I personally believe in reincarnation, and I'm already working on my next incarnation. And I'm thinking that, yeah, I'm going to come back and I'm going to change the world.
Yeah, that I definitely think, like you said, it all starts within ourselves, and that's why it's like, man, while I'm here, I want to do my absolute best with the resources that I have, and the ones I don't, and I want to come together to try my best to. I think Maya Angelou said it, not to be a cheese ball, but be the change in the world that you want to see. But it starts
Yep.
within you, like you said. So
Yes,
you
it
know,
does.
with that being said, thank you so much, Nadine, for coming on here.
Mm, it's been
We,
my pleasure.
yeah, we had an awesome conversation, I think, and can you please tell people, where they can find you, your brand, and what you have coming up in the works, if anything, and what you're looking forward to.
Yes. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, True Wisdom Seeker. I also have a website, truewisdomseeker.com. And on there, there's a couple different courses. There are also one-on-one coaching, which is my primary business, is the one-on-one coaching. That's where I find the most people get the most benefit. And so I do that. And in the future, I'm looking forward to, in the fall, of rolling out group coaching, or and not really coaching. That word for some reason just bugs me. Mentorship, group mentorship, where everyone can meet on Zoom, and creating that community, right? Which is what I'm doing on Facebook and Instagram, is creating a community of like-minded individuals who can support and help each other through this major transitional shift that we're having on the planet. So that's my goal. Is this little old way shower here is trying to make a big impact with just creating a community, creating this supportive tribe that's based in love and compassion and self care.
Awesome. Well, Nadine, it was great speaking with you, and we'll have to have you on again sometime. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your time down there in Virginia.
All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And I would love to come back anytime you want to chat.
Awesome. All right.
I'm
Take
up for
care.
it. All right. You too. Bye bye.
Bye.